Hey, what's going on? It's Stokely from Soul Sondule. My, man. We have all kind of coping mechanisms. I was talking to my friend and his wife, and we were talking about, addiction. Addiction doesn't have to be drugs. Addiction could be consumerism. It could be shopping. It could be materialism. It could be a lot of different things. When a mind is anger and hate and negative thoughts, that's me personally. And another guy, he was talking about, a guy on YouTube that I follow, he was talking about people being addicted to the bad food that we eat. Hot dogs and coffee and sugary drinks and stuff like that. And he was like, he's kind of a, some of these gurus, they kind of offensive while at the same time, whatever they're saying, yeah, it makes sense. But you're trying to really, I don't know, they're so rough with it. The tough love that they put out is sometimes, it can be a deterrent. But anyhow, he was saying, listen, we overall, people in general, we may point our fingers at people who are using crack and saying that's an addict, but we don't point at ourselves and see the addiction behaviors, the similar behaviors that the behaviors that we exhibit that are equivalent, that make us just as dependent as somebody on crack. But he was saying it in regards to coffee. And what I realized in when I realized that I was like that many years ago, sometimes your credit card allows you to show a statement of what businesses, they don't do it anymore, of what businesses you spent money with over the year or during whatever period of time you want to set. And one time I looked and I spent $1,500 at Dunkin' Donuts, which is equivalent to $30 a week, which is about, around about a little less than $30 a week, something around about that number. But I'm pretty sure I was spending more than that, because I was buying, every time I went to Dunkin' Donuts, I was spending about $8. So let's say, oh no, that's right, 5 times 8 is 40. So yeah, I would spend about $8, and then it went up to about $11 every time I went there. So when it got to about $11, and I noticed that $1,500 that I was spending a year, I said, oh well, no, I gotta stop this. Something has to be done about this. Something has to be done about this. And I really enjoy it. I really enjoyed it. Not only did it cost me financially $1,500 a month, one thing I also noticed that I felt sometimes I used to get sick every time I drank it. Either they weren't making the latte machine, they weren't cleaning the latte machine properly, or they weren't cleaning their hands when they're touching the cups, or I don't know, maybe it could have just been holding on to the door coming into the store, me holding on to the door or whatever, not washing my hands, or but one thing I do realize is that when I consume a lot of sugar, it causes inflammation, it causes congestion, and this inflammation and congestion can lead to these cold symptoms. So I really found out that was a problem, and that I need to kind of cut that out, because health-wise it wasn't good for me, and financially it wasn't good for me either. But anyhow, just talking about addiction, that's not my only addiction. Sometimes, we're just addicted to things that are destructive. Anyhow, whatever. The good thing, the strategy, I would think, the sustainable or the best strategy is to find a hobby, which is basically like almost an addiction, that's constructive. Not maybe anything that's consumerist, like collecting comic books or buying things or collecting things, but something constructive. I don't know. Almost everything hobby related, quote unquote, has been, I don't know, rebranded as some kind of consumption type of behavior, when your hobby could be something that you do that's not so costly. Anyhow, yeah, channeling that energy, channeling that addiction into something productive, whether it's exercise, gardening, painting, crafts, podcasting, something. Well, I don't know if podcasting is so constructive, but just doing something, making some music or something, or cooking your dinner, or I don't know. Find something that's gonna build you. Now, crack is not gonna help you. Crack is gonna harm you. Sugar, too much sugar is gonna harm you. Too much alcohol is gonna harm you. Too much salt is gonna harm you. Negative thoughts, they're gonna harm you. So, trying to find a good, positive outlet or good, positive work for your hands, because they say the idle hands are a devil's playground. So you got to get your hands busy. You got to get yourself busy. Recently they released a statistic that male worker participation is down. It was about 96% in the 80s, and now it's down to 80-something%. And these are healthy, prime age men. It's probably about a 10% or more drop in male workforce participation. So in prior years, there would be many more men that are employed. So, what does that say? I don't know. It says that people could be depressed. It could be say that people are discouraged. People are underskilled. They're not educated enough. Overall, it's basically saying that we're not progressing. We're not progressing as a country if these things are happening, if these things are taking place, where people feel disenfranchised and don't feel like participating in the system. Anyhow, moving along. So I was talking to one of my relatives, and I had an incident where I was talking about him before, and I got myself in trouble. But I didn't name names then, and I'm not gonna name names now. But it's just a story. It's just an example. It's just a experience. Anyhow, now what I said before was a little bit, I don't know, condescending. But hey, that's why I don't share my podcast with anybody. So so he's had a rough life coming up. And he's going through a lot. Still, in my opinion, just like me, has not the best, doesn't make the best choices, even in the face of being aware of his problems and shortcomings and conditions. And recently he got himself a dog. So he was telling me about the dog a little bit, and I said, well, this was a very cold thing for me to say, but I think that I'm trying to help. I shouldn't have just made a disgusting burp like that. Not everybody, oh my gosh, not everybody's even comfortable with yawning. Anyhow, so I said to him, well, that dog is a liability. You just increased your liabilities. Because he had a lot of responsibilities. He has a lot of scheduling issues. He has a lot of factors that are working on him. Something's going on with my car. I feel like my transmission is slipping or something. I don't know. So he's got a lot of issues going on that are preventing him from being self-sufficient at this time, financially. So he's not self-sufficient, but he just added another mouth to feed, which is a dog. A dog is a living, breathing creature. Anyhow, so I said to him basically, paraphrasing, that was a bad idea. Maybe you should find somebody to adopt that dog. Give the dog to somebody else. That's what I said. Right? And he didn't really take he didn't really take too much offense to it. He probably said F me, in response, but he didn't vocalize or verbalize or communicate that to me. But he said, oh yeah, it is a liability. That's as much as he said. But then I went somewhere and I just encountered this word or this terminology or this phenomenon called a emotional support animal. And I looked into it a little more. Well, without even looking into it too much. Emotional support animal already implies what it's about. And I already kind of interpreted it to be that for him. Because I said, well, you might feel lonely, but that's still a liability. So the animal, the pet, the dog, it's not necessarily just because he wants to have a pet to play with or whatever the case may be. It's for his own emotional support. A pet, particularly dogs, they love you, they show you affection. When they care about you, they just care about you. Doesn't matter if you're the worst person in the world. Doesn't matter sometimes even how you treat them. Sometimes they'll still show you affection. They'll still care about you. You might not be the best person in the world regarding how you treat people or animals, and they'll still love you. And they don't talk back. For the most part, they're probably not going to run away. They don't put up any resistance, and they don't have any rights. So if people can't tolerate you, your pets will. Your pets will tolerate you. If people don't like you, your pets will. If people are offended by you, or you offend people and you're not nice to people, you might be nice to your dog. And you might not be nice to your dog because your dog doesn't talk back. Your dog doesn't have any rights. Your dog can't make any decisions. You make all the decisions for the dog. You're in full control of their life. Maybe you're a controlling kind of person. And as a result of that, you're in the social situation you are in with people. I didn't say this to him, and this is not about him now. I'm just talking in general. I'm just speaking in general now. The pet doesn't have a choice on who is going to take care of it. Now, recently I was watching a news report on television, on YouTube, but it was one of the local television stations saying that post the pandemic, a lot of people are turning in their pets to the shelter. So we already know a lot of things have happened in the past few years. Rents have skyrocketed, like unrealistic rent increases. Cost of living increases regarding food, insurance, fuel, everything that you can think of. Tolls, fares for the buses and the trains. Costs have gone up everywhere. So people have to make a choice on whether they're going to have somewhere to live, whether they're going to maintain their few comforts, or they're going to give up their pet. And many are electing to give up their pet and send their pet to the shelter, just dropping off their pet at the shelter. Hopefully someone adopts them. And I remember I used to write, and this is so what I'm saying is, people in a poor economic position like himself is amassing to himself another liability, another pet. And I hope that everything works out great. But some people have means. Some people in New York City, living on their own, got their own apartment, their own job, their own car, their whatever, etc., in better financial position than him, are turning in their pets because they have to make a choice, they have to make a sacrifice. They're no longer willing to take care of this living being anymore, right? So nobody even got hit. What are they doing? Oh my gosh! So there's two cars parked like a T. Anyway, whatever. So anyhow, so I see that he's using this dog as emotional support, but the pet, unfortunately, since it can't talk back, it can't defend itself, and it doesn't have any rights for the most part, it can't say to him, listen, you actually need to do a lifestyle change. You don't need to be comforted in your folly. You don't need to be comforted in your bad ideas or your bad behavioral patterns. You don't need to be encouraged and comforted inside of that. What you need to do is change your behavioral patterns, change your thought patterns, change your practices, change your behaviors to change your situation and improve your situation so that you won't even need a support animal anymore. Change your coping mechanisms. Change how your body responds to stimulation, dopamine, and all this yada yada, so that you can liberate yourself from destitution, or whatever the word might be, from your lack of independence, to liberate yourself from your lack of financial independence, to liberate yourself from your unfortunate schedule or poor scheduling. The dog can't say that. The dog can't say nothing. The dog just gonna come and lick your face, and then everything is okay. And we see these things. We see homeless people with pets. Now, if you really love the pet, would you be amassing yourself a pet while you're homeless? That's not in the best interest of the pet. That's like saying you're gonna have kids and you're homeless, which many people do. We see people starving in Somalia, Eritrea, Congo, wherever in the world it may be. And we see them still reproducing. We see them still fornicating. We see them still, I don't know, engaging in coitus, whatever the case may be. Of course, because they want to escape. They use sex as a drug. When I say they, I'm talking about myself. So they use it as a drug. They use it as a comfort. They use it as, and the comfort, gaining comfort in a bad place, I don't know if that's the solution. I don't know if that's the solution. That's one coping mechanism, but I don't know if it's the best. I don't know if it's the even close to the best coping solution for being in a bad position. You're in a bad place, you're in a bad position, get out of there. Now, I'm being a hypocrite also at the same time. But, sometimes you go on the train, and I'm all over the place. You understand what I'm saying? Let me just summarize. If you're in a bad place, you don't want to spend resources on comforts. You want to spend your resources on liberating yourself from that bad place. Then, once you're liberated, now you're free. Now you're free. Now you can get yourself some comforts. And sometimes that could be an issue too, because like when people get paid more money, they start to buy more stuff, and they just have this creep of debt creep, or the spending creep, or whatever they call it. where they end up just as poor as they were before they got the pay increase. They're just as poor because they increased, their pay increased, but their spending also increased. So, it's good to have people tell you the truth, which I think I did tell him that. If he told me he was getting a dog before, I would have said, don't get a dog. Get your life together, don't get a dog. And yeah, maybe he would have resented that. That's like me telling somebody, you're poor, don't get married. You're poor, don't have kids. They're going to say, how dare you? How dare you tell me what to do in my life? And thankfully, this is America. We can do whatever we want. One thing we can especially do is destroy ourselves as much as we want. And it's good for the economy. Us destroying ourselves is good for the economy. We buy more stuff when we do that. We buy more services when we do that. The system is able to collect more fines from us when we do that. So it generates a lot of motility, or it generates a lot of activity in the economy. The more dysfunctional I am. When I'm functional, or if I'm high functioning, and I'm getting everything for the most part right, I'm not going to get a speeding ticket. I'm not going to get a red light ticket. I'm not going to get a fine on my taxes. Hopefully, If you're eating right, you might not get sick as much. You might not have to get that surgery. You might not have to miss that day of work. You might not, if you eat right, you might be able to play with your kids more. You might live a little bit longer. You might be able to be fully independent for the rest of your life and allow your kids and your family members to be liberated. And let me just go off on a tangent. I'm done with that. I already just spoke about that. You understand what I'm saying? He just increased his liabilities. That's not really a good idea. But let me move on to something else. Let's realize when someone has Alzheimer's, it increases the chance by 6 times that whoever is caring for them will get Alzheimer's due to isolation primarily and stress. Isolation and stress. So when somebody got to take care of you, they're isolated with you and they're stressed out by you. As a result, they develop Alzheimer's also. So by saving yourself, you might be saving somebody else. Anyhow, thanks for listening.